So when I was a kid, like many kids, I loved watching cartoons on TV. And many of the great cartoons that I used to watch were already in syndication by the time I ever saw them. So those cartoons included all kinds of the classics like Bugs Bunny and Friends and all the Warner Brothers stuff, the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, and another show that ran just before I was born called Tennessee Tuxedo and Friends. I don't know if anybody remembers this or not, but Tennessee Tuxedo was this penguin who, along with his walrus sidekick, frequently needed advice from a wise human professor named Mr. Whoopi. Mr. Whoopi always patiently explained how things worked, and it was actually a pretty good educational cartoon because he would explain all kinds of things about the way things happened in the world. But in order to explain how things worked, Mr. Whoopi often had to retrieve his magic drawing board, which was this thing before we had screens and stuff, but you pull it out and pull it. It had all kinds of animation on it. But it was kept in his office closet. And one of the running gags was that whenever he opened the office closet door, he got buried by a tsunami of junk that had been shoved into the closet. I remembered that show on Christmas Eve this year when I needed to go into our church office closet to get something. As I opened the door to reach in, I got buried by all kinds of junk that I had been saying we needed to go through for years. It just literally fell upon me. It was the only moment on Christmas Eve that I found myself muttering the non-pastor words, but the microphone was not on, so that was good. And I vowed that after Christmas, I was finally going to go through that closet and clean it out. And I did. And it was amazing what I found in there. There were things in there that nobody had seen or touched for literally decades. And as I sorted through all that stuff that was there, I created several piles out in the narthex. You wouldn't think that a closet could completely fill the narthex, but it did. So my piles included junk, stuff that really needed to be thrown out or recycled. Sometimes this was stuff that nobody really ever needed, but somebody put it there, just in case somebody might need it someday. Sometimes it was stuff that was broken when it was put in there, but it still had some use and maybe somebody could fix it. And sometimes this was stuff that might have, at one time, been needed, but that was years ago. Nobody's needed it for years, and it just sat there. It was junk. Another pile I started putting together were yard sale candidates. I joke that one of the reasons we have yard sale is because nobody ever throws anything out around here. And in the closet, there was some stuff that was perfectly usable, but we don't need it, and really, we never have. There were also a few things that almost qualify as antiques, but again, we're never going to need them again. After all, when was the last time you needed a slide projector or extra slide carousels? And if you do, you can find them at next year's yard sale. They will be there. And the third bunch of stuff that I found was things that we actually do need that nobody would ever find because they were stuffed behind all the junk. There were a couple of historical documents that really were interesting and should be preserved, but someplace else, not back in the closet. There were potentially usable items for our sound system that nobody knew was there. There were even a couple of things that I had repurchased because I didn't know that the original items got buried deep in the closet. This is really stupid, but all these lights around here, there's a little pole that you can use to take the light bulbs out and put the light bulbs in, and we had a couple of those. We could never find them. I bought another one, found two of them in the closet, buried back there. You can't find this stuff. So I tell you this Christmas story on Ash Wednesday because Lent is actually a really good time to clean up and to clean out. Not just our closets, but our lives. Lent is a good time to look at our lives and to ask ourselves, what is the junk that's getting in my way? Maybe it's old habits or routines or attitudes. Maybe it's the stuff I tell myself I need to do because I have always done those things. Maybe it's the feeling that I can't get rid of something because it has sat in the closet of my life for so long that I don't even realize that maybe it's blocking my view of more important things. What's the junk in my life? What's the junk in your life that really just needs to be gotten rid of. Lent is a good time to look at our lives and ask ourselves, what do I have that somebody else needs? Maybe not in the yard sale, but what is it that somebody else needs? Some of the traditional disciplines of Lent, things like prayer and fasting, were never intended to be self-centered. That is, they were not about me turning in on myself and trying to feel more spiritual, but rather looking outside of myself to the needs of others, as Jesus looked outside of himself and paid attention to the needs of others. So it was that Gregory the Great, I have quoted this sometimes, he was a pope in the 5th century, and he stood up and he said to his congregation as he began Lent, he said, if you're going to fast, store up your food in the bellies of the poor. Take the food that you're going to eat and give it to somebody else. You have something in your closet that someone else needs. Same way with prayer. Prayer is not supposed to be, I pray for myself, you can too, that's a good thing, but prayer is always an invitation to think about who needs my prayers, who needs help, who do I need to lift up to God. Ask yourself who it is that needs your prayers. That's what Lent is all about. Prayer is most importantly about praying for others, not just myself, and so what do we have that others need instead of just letting it take up space in the closets of our lives? And Lent is also a good time to ask ourselves what needs to be found and dusted off and brought out again. Sometimes the biggest reason to clean is to find the stuff that we forgot about. The stuff where you go, oh wait, I have this, I need this. What is it? What talent or passion do you have? But you've forgotten about it or ignored it lately because there's been too much clutter in the way. What gift is there waiting for you to use again, which might be the very thing that God needs you to make use of in this particular moment? What are the things that surprise you when you clean out the clutter and you find and you can use? So actually, the other great thing about cleaning out the closet was that now the closet looks empty because there's lots of enormous space for things that we do need to have in there. We can find stuff that was supposed to be in there, and the junk doesn't get in our way anymore. And that's really what Lent is supposed to be about in our lives as well. It's about cleaning out so that you can find what God really needs you to find that may have been there all along. It's about cleaning out so that you can find the gifts you have to share with others. And it's about cleaning out so that the important stuff that God gives you doesn't get buried by all the junk. Amen.